What is up, y'all? My name is Brandon. Let's talk about some books. So for my last video, I know I mentioned short books that I think are worth reading and some recommendations for those. And today I kind of want to flip it and talk about some books that I have not read yet, but books that are over 600 pages is kind of how I would delineate what a big book actually is. But 3 of these are over 1,000 pages. So actually 4 of these are over 1,000 pages. So most of them are again quite long. But sometimes I just think that we need a big book that we could just take time to get into and to really enjoy what it has to offer, whether that is the story or the way of writing or something that the author can provide beyond the actual just experience of reading the book. I think that just they have a special place for me, and I know I mentioned in the last video I do look at big books anytime I go in a store. I scan for the biggest books that I can find, just because I enjoy seeing them and finding ones that maybe other people don't know about, and yeah. So with that said, let me go ahead and let's go ahead and get into it. I have one that I'm going to read in conjunction with some of the others. I think I'm gonna talk about that one first. The others are going to be pieced out, I think, over a month and a half or 2 months. So I've got 7 main ones, and then one that I'm going to kind of talk about, like I said, first, but that's going to get thrown in conjunction with the others. So the first one is a nonfiction book. Actually, it's a biography, and I know I mentioned this in my video on the Book of Disquiet, but Pessoa, the biography of Fernando Pessoa by Richard Zenith, and this is just over 1,000 pages with the notes in it. So I think it's 1,020 pages with the endnotes included. And I love the Book of Disquiet, and I think that this is absolutely one that I'm gonna throw in and just read a little bit at a time, because it is nonfiction, so it tends to go a little bit slower for me, at least. I love how the cover kind of uses the kind of frames for Pessoa himself as framing him as different people, since that's his thing is writing through heteronyms. But yeah, I'm super excited for this. I love Pessoa, and I can't wait to see what he has to say about him. All right, next up is a book that is translated from Norwegian by Damien Searles, and this is written by Jon Fosse. This is right at 667 pages, which I actually think is kind of ironic, given that the nature of the book is kind of religious in its tone and its content as well. But it's put out by Transit Books, and that is Septology by Jon Fosse. And this is actually written as 3 books. The Other Name, I Is Another, and A New Name, which in each one of those it is separate books. So it's really 7 books is why it's called Septology. But written as 3 kind of novels or novellas, and then those are broken up into individual parts as well. So the first 2 are I believe 1 and 2, and then you have 3 and 4, and possibly 5 as well. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, and then book 6 and book 7 are both A New Name. This is a story about this aging widower and painter from Norway, and he is just kind of reminiscing about his life and asking these transcendent questions about light, shadow, life and death, love, loss, hopelessness, and faith. And there is another version of himself, so a doppelganger that is living in the same town, but just completely different, set against this life of himself, this lonelier version of himself, who is kind of asking similar questions. And I'm not sure about interactions between them or whatever ends up happening. I do know that everybody that I've heard that talk about this book says that it is just incredible, and that it is one of the few books that really makes you observe and think about the power of divinity in our lives. And the quote on the back says, it's a transcendent exploration of the human condition. And I've literally never heard anybody say anything bad about this. I think it's interesting in that there is no punctuation, aside from commas and apostrophes. There's no periods, question marks, or anything like that. It's just commas. And I just think it's interesting to play off of this idea of no periods, being life maybe doesn't end. There's no stopping points. There's only a break that continues with the next thing that happens in our lives. But I'm really excited about that. Again, I think this is the first one out of this list that I'm going to get to, but we'll see. Alright, next up is the longest book on this list of mine that I want to read, and I just feel like this book has been calling to me for months now. Towards the end of last year, it got published in October, and I don't know, it was just something about it that was like making me want to read it. It is 1,229 pages. Tom's Crossing by Mark Z. Danielewski. And then I know I mentioned this in a book haul video. This edition's autographed too, for whatever that might mean to anybody. I just think it's cool to kind of have that piece of him, given that I've really not heard anything bad about this book either. At least the people that have read it, or the people that have read parts of it, have said that it's just amazing. And I think it's just crazy getting 500 to 600 pages into a book, and you're not even halfway. I think that's crazy. This is published by Pantheon Books, and they actually sent me a teaser, a copy of the advanced copy of the first chapter. That's just like a teaser of it, which was pretty cool. I didn't get a chance to read it, but I this has just been on my mind, and I think I'm planning to read it fairly soon. This is a adventure story, from my understanding, of these two friends in this city of Orvop, Utah, which is actually an anagram for Provo, which is where Danielewski is actually from. So I think that's also pretty interesting. In 1982, these two friends go on a journey to rescue two horses that are set to be slaughtered. And it's pretty much all that you're given about the story, other than, it's somewhat supernatural. Stephen King has a blurb on the back of this that I think is pretty interesting. He says, "This is an amazing work of fiction. I absolutely loved it. At the heart, you'll find a blood-drenched story of pursuit in two brave and resourceful children. But there's so much more. I immersed myself. I've never read anything like it." And there's a point in time where I picked up pretty much anything that had Stephen King blurbing it on the cover, and I didn't even know that. And when this got released and all that, and it kind of just made it a little bit more of something that was calling to me, I felt like. So I just kind of want to be immersed, like he's talking about, like immersed in a story that is just long and requires time and attention to detail. And I think that this would provide exactly that. Alright, my third pick is a book that I got probably like a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit less than that, but this is 678 pages, and is published by the University of Chicago Press. This is A Naked Singularity by Sergio de la Pava, and I've heard really good things about this. Just reading the blurbs on the back, there is one that says, if you like The Wire, if you like rewarding, difficult fiction, if you like literary, high-quality, artistic, and hilarious, yet moving novels that are difficult to put down, I can't recommend A Naked Singularity enough. And I didn't even really think about that consciously, but I did just start rewatching The Wire, which is just a weird coincidence. This is, again, 678 pages, so not one of the longer ones on this list, but still a big book for sure. But it says that it is a panoramic in its reach, which I like that word. I think it kind of gives you a broad view of, you know, many different types of people and events that are characterized in here. But it's about a public defender in Manhattan who is a child of Colombian immigrants, and it is said that he has never lost a trial, and like ever, and he just kind of, it follows his life as his sense of justice and his sense of self start to crack and fall apart. Sounds really good given our, you know, current climate that we're in the United States, how I feel like it kind of feels like a sense of justice is kind of dissipating a little bit. And this is also said to be kind of satirical at times, but just funny in general, but also written very well. And yeah, I'm super excited for this. And I know Matt from Clausen Books talked about this as well, that he really wanted to read it. So if he sees this, I'll buddy read with you. All right, the next one, if you can believe it, is only the third longest book on this list, but I definitely think that it is the biggest in size. It may be bigger than Jon Fosse, which is crazy. Jon Fosse is like comically large and how thick it is. But this is published by McSweeney's. It is actually have another edition that was recently released last year, but I do want to read this one because this is the edition that initially kind of like drew me to wanting to read this. It is 1,030 pages, and that's the instructions by Adam Levin, and it's just like, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's literally like, I mean, it's just crazy. And what makes it even crazier is that this is a novel that takes place over only 4 days, and it is just, I've heard from people that have read it say that it's like super funny and like addictive, yet still like very intelligent and like easy to read almost. This is about a 10-year-old boy who has been expelled from 2 Jewish day schools for acts of violence and messianic tendencies, which like right there kind of feels satirical but also not at the same time. And he ends up in this kind of like lockdown program called The Cage for people who have just kind of been like deemed as hopeless cases in the schooling wherever this takes place. But I do think that this has a lot of obviously religious connotations with the fact that Jewish culture is kind of embedded in this book, and I think that, you know, it starts to, like only 4 days, it starts to kind of build toward this revolution that the quote on the back says of troubling intensity, whatever that means. I think that it sounds intriguing, and you know, any big book like this that is pared down to where it takes place over such a short amount of time, I think is one that intrigues me and makes me at least want to try it out. But I have no doubt that this is going to be well worth the time. Alright, my next pick is Weak in Comparison to Dreams by James Elkins. This is a debut novel actually from Elkins, who is he's a historian and an art critic. He's written a lot of like nonfiction books about art, so it's not the first book that he's written, but it is his first novel, and very experimental from what all of the descriptions that I can find say, and I've heard good things about it. This is right at 605 pages, so just barely makes the cut for my arbitrary 600-page rule, but it's published by Unnamed Press, which I have heard of, but I don't believe I've read anything from them. You know, I love the cover, number one. I think like this like draws you to it, the spine and the cover itself. The story is Also intriguing. I think the premise is very, like, draws you in and makes you want to find out what is going to happen. There's a man who has lived his life. He's kind of like monitoring bacteria levels in drinking water in this town of Guelph. It's Guelph. I'm not sure how exactly it's supposed to be said, but he's slowly like starting to lose his grasp on his life and his family and friends, and he eventually becomes appointed as a leader for the zoo feasibility committee for his town, and so his job becomes traveling to different zoos across the world and finding out like stereotypical behaviors of the animals that live there, because his town would like to commendably create an environment that is cruelty-free for their animals, which I think is going to be impossible, obviously, but like the positivity kind of comes through of like hopefulness, even in spite of maybe insurpassable odds. But with that said, when he goes to Estonia, he starts having these dreams where he's in this vast forest and he sees this fire that is far off in the distance, but slowly it starts coming towards him, and obviously I think that like the cover kind of shows that aspect of it. This is supposed to be a series of 5 books, I think. So far he has written 2 of them, or published 2 of them. This one, and then a short introduction to Annalise. This is the 2nd book, I think. So he is not publishing them in order of, how like book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5. It's going to be like he's publishing them out of order, kind of like how Volman did with the 7 Dreams series, which I don't believe is even finished now. But yeah, definitely excited for this. Just to give you kind of like an example of the experimentalism that is said to be in here, there are like graphs and pictures, and right here, and then like the next page has like these little lines, and then like there's just pictures all throughout. Like there's probably hundreds of pictures in here, and yeah, I think that, which makes sense given that a critic, an art historian, and it said that he is well versed on the use of images as kind of like an experimental tool in books. Yeah, I have high hopes for this. We'll see when I get to it, possibly summer, we'll see, but I'm still very excited for this. Alright, next up is a bit of an exception to this 600-page rule, but I still wanted to include this because it's physically big, and I think that it requires the effort needed to tackle a bigger book. This is Life, a User's Manual by Georges Perec, and it's translated from French by David Bellos. With the index, this is 661 pages, but the index is absolutely like insanely long. It's almost 100 pages of just the index, which is crazy to me. The actual story is only about 569 pages. I decided to include it just because, again, like I think it's going to take the effort needed for a bigger book, such as the other ones that I've got. This is kind of like a literary puzzle, is what it's called, labyrinthine, and I think the most intriguing aspect of this is that it said that it all like is set against one single moment, which is 8:00 p.m. on June 23rd, 1975, which the ability to write something devoid of any kind of like time passing, I think is something that I don't think that is easy to do. I think that that's difficult. I think it's new and like fresh, and I think that's why this book has been highly regarded for quite a long time, and I know that Perec is a definitely like worthy author. He's highly praised. Each chapter kind of reveals more and more until you can you learn about like a murder mystery almost, where it kind of says, the quote on the back says that it goes with, it's kind of like a literary puzzle that takes into account human life, ambitions, love, and fate. And I think that all those are major, themes in humanity today. And I think that they are things that we should read about in today's world. My last pick is Against the Day by Thomas Pynchon, and this book is a second longest book on this list, coming in at 1,085 pages, and it's published by Penguin. And I think that as I was going through these books, I think that this is one that made me the most excited. One of the ones on this stack that just kind of really made me excited to read, because it's Pynchon, number one, and just reading Mason and Dixon, I think that this being the next one published chronologically from him, I think it's the last bigger book that I have to read by him, and yeah, I'm just really excited for it. Really more easy to give thematic descriptions to this. I don't think that it's easily summarizable because of the wide range of locations and people that are taken into account in this book, but as the characters kind of, what it says on the back, the list of the types of people that are included in here: anarchists, balloonists, gamblers, drug enthusiasts, mathematicians, mad scientists, shamans, spies, and hired guns. And yeah, it's kind of said about these people living their lives kind of as this unpredictable future starts to fall around them. And I think that it kind of takes this the title Against the Day. They're living against the day that is coming. They're kind of up against all of these things that are happening that they have no say in allowing. So sometimes they manage to catch up. Sometimes it's their lives that pursue them. And I think that is just such an accurate description of how a lot of times it feels like we live our lives, as far as the things either being in our control or things that tend to kind of just happen to us, and that we're being lived by our lives, not the other way around. Please make sure you're staying safe. I know that the East Coast over here has been hit with a massive amount of ice and snow, and as I teach 5th grade, and we've been out, we were out this whole week, so which is good also, but at the same time, kind of throws off the schedule and routine and everything like that. So but make sure you're staying safe and warm, and yeah, if you read any of these books or you have any other big books to recommend, please make sure you leave a comment down below. I love to hear what people have to say. If you like the video, please make sure to like it. That helps me out a ton. And then subscribe if you have not. That helps me out as well. Above all though, enjoy what you read, and I will see you all in the next one.